The red dust swirled around Captain Marcus Reed's boots as he approached the smoking wreckage scattered across the barren moonscape. His scanner had detected the crash 3 hours ago, and every instinct told him to stay away. Alien vessels meant trouble. Trouble was something he'd come to this remote mining outpost to avoid. But the faint life signs on his detector changed. Everything. Marcus adjusted his respirator and stepped carefully through the debris field. Twisted metal gleamed dully under the pale light of the twin suns overhead. The ship had been elegant once, all flowing curves and crystalline panels, nothing like the boxy human transports he knew. Now it lay broken, leaking strange blue fluids into the rocky soil. A sound caught his attention, a soft whimper that didn't belong to the wind. Following the noise, he rounded a large section of hull and stopped dead. A figure hunched against the wreckage, cradling something small against her chest. Even through the environmental suit, he could see she was badly hurt. Purple-tinted skin showed through tears in her metallic fabric, and dark fluid stained her. Sighed. But it was the tiny bundle in her arms that made his breath catch. An infant, no bigger than his fist, with the same luminous skin as its mother. The baby's weak cries pierced the thin atmosphere. Marcus approached slowly, hands visible. The woman's head snapped up, revealing large silver eyes filled with fear and determination. She spoke rapidly in a melodic language he didn't recognize, pressing the child closer to her chest. "Easy," Marcus said, though he knew she couldn't understand. He pointed to himself. "Marcus, human, help." She watched him with wary intelligence as he knelt beside her. Up close, he could see the extent of her injuries. Burns covered her arms, and she was losing too much of that dark fluid. Without medical attention, she'd be dead within hours. The baby might not last that long. Marcus gestured toward his shelter, visible as a small dome in the distance. "Safe," he said, hoping his tone would convey his meaning. "Medicine." The woman studied his face intently, searching for deception. Whatever she saw there seemed to satisfy her because she gave a slight nod. When Marcus reached for her, she flinched, but didn't pull away. Lifting her was like carrying moonbeams. She weighed almost nothing, despite being nearly as tall as him. Her head fell against his shoulder as consciousness flickered, and he felt the baby squirm between them. The small weight pressed against his chest stirred, something protective he hadn't felt in years. The walk back to his shelter seemed endless. Twice the woman stirred, silver eyes finding his face, as if checking he was still there. Each time he murmured reassurances, he hoped she could somehow understand. Inside his modest habitat, Marcus laid her gently on his cot. The baby had gone silent, too weak to cry, and panic fluttered in his chest. He activated the medical scanner he'd salvaged from a crashed supply ship months ago. The readings were chaotic. Her physiology was completely alien, but the basics were clear. Massive trauma, severe dehydration, and rapidly failing vital signs, working with desperate efficiency. Marcus cleaned her wounds with antiseptic gel and applied emergency patches. The woman drifted in and out of consciousness, occasionally gripping his wrist with surprising strength. Her touch sent strange warmth up his arm. He wondered if it was some kind of alien ability or simply the fever of injury. The baby worried him more. So small, so fragile, with no idea what it needed to survive. When he offered diluted nutrient paste on his finger, tiny lips latched on hungrily. Relief flooded through him as the infant began to feed. Hours passed in careful tending. As the woman's breathing steadied and her injuries stabilized, Marcus finally allowed himself to sit back. The baby had fallen asleep, curled against its mother's side, tiny chest rising and falling in perfect rhythm. Looking at them, this alien mother and child who'd fallen literally from the stars into his solitary life. Marcus felt the walls he'd built around his heart beginning to crack. He'd come here to escape from caring, from the pain of loss that had driven him from human space, but some things, it seemed, were stronger than distance. Healing bonds 3 days had passed since the crash, and the woman had begun to recover her strength. She'd woken fully that morning, silver eyes alert and focused as she took in her surroundings. Marcus had been tending the baby little Nyx. She'd somehow managed to communicate through gestures when those luminous eyes fixed on him with startling intensity. Zara, she said, pressing a slender hand to her chest. Her voice was like wind chimes, musical even in its weakness. Marcus, he replied, pointing to himself. It was a small beginning, but it felt monumental. Over the following hours, they'd built a basic vocabulary through pointing and repetition. Zara was quick too. Learn, picking up English words with an ease that suggested high intelligence. She taught him words in her own language, soft, flowing sounds that seemed to carry more meaning than human speech. Now, Marcus watched as she attempted to stand for the first time. Her legs shook with the effort, and he moved to steady her. Moment his hands touched her arms, that strange warmth flowed between them again. Zara's eyes widened, and he wondered if she felt it too. Strong, she said in accented English, looking at him with something that might have been admiration. You're the strong one, Marcus replied. Surviving that crash, protecting your daughter? He gestured to baby Nix, sleeping peacefully in the makeshift crib he'd constructed. Zara's expression grew sad. She touched the pendant hanging at her throat, a twisted piece of metal that must have been beautiful once. Husband, she said haltingly. Gone. Ship. ... attack. Out. He recognized the look in her eyes, the hollow ache of loss. I'm sorry, he said softly. She nodded, then surprised him by reaching out to touch his face. Fingers were warm against his cheek, and he felt that electric connection again. You, alone too, she observed. He hadn't told her anything about himself, but somehow she knew. Yes, he admitted. Lost my team. My fault. No, Zara said firmly, her hand still resting against his skin. Heart knows, it's not fault. The simple acceptance in her voice nearly undid him. He'd carried guilt for 3 years, the weight of decisions that had cost good people their lives. But when Zara looked at him, he saw no judgment, only understanding. As the days passed, their communication improved rapidly. Zara had been an engineer on her homeworld before the war forced her to flee. She examined Marcus's equipment with professional interest, making suggestions for improvements with graceful hand movements when words failed her. Your people, they build strong but simple, she said one evening as they shared dinner. Baby Nix gurgled contentedly on her lap, reaching for the light crystals Zara had salvaged from her ship. Simple works out here, Marcus replied. Not complex. Things break. Sometimes Zara agreed, then smiled, the first real smile he'd seen from her. It transformed her face, making her ethereally beautiful. But complex things, they can be very beautiful too. Their eyes met across the small table, and Marcus felt something shift between them. The grief they both carried seemed lighter somehow. When shared, when Zara reached across the table and placed her hand over his, he didn't pull away. Thank you, she said, for saving us, for ... being kind. Thank you for trusting me, he replied, turning his hand palm up so their fingers could intertwine. Her skin was warm and soft. Holding her hand felt like the most natural thing in the world. Later that night, Marcus lay on his sleeping mat beside the cot where Zara and Nix rested. He heard soft singing. Zara was humming a lullaby. Her native tongue, the melody hauntingly beautiful in the darkness. What does it mean? He asked quietly. It says, little star, you are safe, you are loved. The dark cannot touch you here, Zara translated, her voice barely a whisper. Marcus closed his eyes and let the alien lullaby wash over him. For the first time in years, he felt safe too, protected not by walls or weapons, but by the growing bond between 3 souls who had found each other among the stars. When he woke in the morning, he found Zara sitting beside him, watching him sleep with an expression of such tenderness. It took his breath away. Baby Nix was cradled against her chest, tiny hand wrapped around her mother's finger. Good morning, Zara said in perfect English. And Marcus realized that somewhere in the space between sleeping and waking, his heart had begun to heal. 2 weeks had transformed Marcus's austere shelter into something resembling a home. Zara's presence had brought warmth to spaces that had known only solitude. Her salvaged crystals cast gentle light in the evenings, and the sound of baby Nix's laughter filled corners that had been silent too long. Marcus stood in the doorway, watching Zara work on the communication array they'd been rebuilding together. Her slender fingers moved with practiced precision as she integrated her advanced technology with his crude human equipment. The contrast fascinated him. Her people's elegant solutions merged with his functional designs. The quantum resonance should amplify the signal, Zara murmured, more to herself than to him. Her English had improved dramatically, though she still spoke with that musical accent that made even technical terms sound like poetry. "Will it reach the colony ships?" Marcus asked, moving to stand beside her. Their shoulders brushed as he leaned in to examine her work, and he felt that familiar electric warmth pass between them. "Perhaps. My people have ships in this sector searching for survivors." She paused, her hands stilling on the components. "Though I am not sure I wish to be found." Marcus looked at her sharply. "Why not? They're your people." Zara set down her tools and turned to face him fully. In the weeks she'd been recovering, she'd grown more beautiful. Or perhaps he was simply learning to see her properly. The burn scars had faded to silver lines that seemed to catch the light, and her eyes held depths he was still discovering. "My people are fleeing a war we cannot win," she said quietly. "They seek new worlds, new places to rebuild, but they would not understand. This." She gestured between them, and Marcus's heart began to race. "What is this?" he asked, though he thought he knew. Instead of answering with words, Zara reached up and cupped his face in her hands. Her touch sent warmth spreading through him. But this time it was different, stronger, more focused. Images flashed through his mind, memories that weren't his own. He saw Zara's homeworld before the war, cities of crystal and light. He felt her loss when her husband died, the desperate fear as she fled with her daughter, and he felt something else the way her heart had begun to heal in his presence, just as his had in hers. "Oh. Among my people, we call it Kethra," Zara whispered. "The bonding of souls across the void. It is ... rare. Sacred." Marcus's hands came up to cover hers. He shared his own memories without conscious thought, his guilt over losing his squad. The years of isolation and the profound sense of completeness he'd felt since she arrived. "I don't understand how." "It's possible," he said. "Does it matter how?" Zara asked. "What matters is what we choose to do with this gift." Before he could respond, baby Nyx began to fuss from her crib. Zara moved to comfort her daughter, and Marcus watched as she lifted the child with infinite tenderness. Nyx had grown in the weeks since the crash, her pale skin gaining a healthy glow. She'd also grown attached to Marcus, reaching for him with tiny hands whenever he came near. "She sees you as her father now," Zara said softly, noticing his gaze. The words hit him like a physical blow. "I'm not. I can't replace ... You are not replacing anyone," Zara interrupted gently. "You are becoming something new, something wonderful." That evening, they worked together to finish the communication array while Nyx played with light toys Zara had fashioned from crystal fragments. The domestic scene felt so natural, so right, that Marcus almost forgot they came from different worlds there, Zara announced as the array hummed to life. "We should be able to reach anyone within 10 light years." Marcus nodded, but made no move to activate the beacon. Zara noticed his hesitation and placed her hand on his arm. "What troubles you? If your people come, they'll want to take you away." "From here," he said. "Inhuman colonial services will eventually check on this station. When they find out you're here, they will separate us," Zara finished. "Yes." They stood in silence, watching the lights blink on the completed array. Finally, Zara reached over and switched it off. "Then we do not signal yet," she said simply. "Your people will survive without me. But I'm not sure I will survive without you." She turned to him, silver eyes bright with unshed tears. "Is that selfish of me?" Marcus pulled her into his arms, marveling at how perfectly she fit against him. "If it is, then we're selfish together." As he held her, baby Nyx crawled over and pulled herself up using his leg, babbling happily. Marcus reached down to lift her, and for a moment, the three of them were complete a family forged, not by blood or species, but by love that had grown. From the ashes of loss, outside, the alien stars wheeled in their courses. indifferent to the boundaries that separated worlds. But inside their small shelter, Marcus had found something worth more than all the stars in the galaxy. The proximity alarms shattered the peaceful morning like breaking glass. Marcus bolted upright from where he'd been dozing beside Zara, their hands still intertwined from the night before. She was already awake, silver eyes wide with a fear he'd never seen there before. "Ships," she whispered, her voice tight with recognition. "Zephyrian hunters." Marcus was moving before she finished speaking, activating the shelter's defensive screens and scanning systems. 3 sleek vessels appeared on his displays, their design unmistakably predatory. They circled the moon like vultures, sensor beams sweeping the surface in methodical patterns. "How did they find us?" Marcus asked, pulling on his tactical gear. "With practiced efficiency?" "The quantum signature from our communication array," Zara replied, gathering Nyx into her arms. The baby sensed the tension and began to whimper. "I thought we had disabled it completely, but they must have detected the initial power surge." Marcus cursed himself for his carelessness. He'd been so focused on their growing relationship that he'd forgotten the dangers hunting them. Now his negligence might cost them everything. "What do they want?" "Me," Zara said simply. "My knowledge. The location of my people's fleet." Her voice dropped to barely a whisper. "They will kill you and take Nyx to ensure my cooperation." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. He'd faced death before, but the thought of anything happening to Zara or Nyx filled him with a protective rage he'd never experienced. These weren't just refugees he'd rescued anymore. They were his family. "It's not happening," he said, his voice carrying the cold authority of his military training. "Take Nyx to the back chamber. There's emergency supplies and a communications beacon. If something happens to me, no." Zara's interruption was firm, her silver eyes blazing with determination. "We face this together or not at all." Before Marcus could argue, the first ship began its landing approach. Through the shelter's viewports, they could see tall, angular figures in dark armor disembarking. Even from a distance, their movements spoke of trained killers. "They know we're here," Marcus observed, watching the squad spread into an attack formation. "No point hiding." "Then we make them pay for finding us," Zara replied. She set Nyx safely in her crib and moved to the weapon storage Marcus had shown her weeks earlier. Her fingers closed around one of his plasma rifles with surprising familiarity. "You've done this before," he realized. "I was an engineer, yes, but also a soldier before the evacuations began," Zara admitted. "My people do not have the luxury of specialization anymore." The first energy bolt struck their shelter's outer wall, leaving a glowing scar in the metal. Marcus positioned himself at the primary firing port, while Zara took the secondary position. Their movements flowed together like a dance they'd practiced for years. "On my mark," Marcus said, finger hovering over the door controls. The hunters advanced in perfect formation, their weapons sweeping side to side. Marcus counted 6 of them, each one moving with deadly precision. Professional soldiers, not the desperate refugees he'd expected. "Mark," he breathed, and hit the controls. The door burst open, and Marcus emerged, firing, shots forcing the lead hunters to dive for cover behind scattered debris. Zara followed a heartbeat later, her plasma rifle finding its target with surgical accuracy. One of the hunters cried out as her shot found a gap in his armor. "Impressive human," called out what was obviously their leader, his voice amplified by external speakers. "But you only delay the inevitable. Surrender the female, and we will grant you a quick death." "Counteroffer," Marcus shouted back, putting 3 more shots into the hunter's cover. "Go back where you came from, and we won't kill you all." Hunter's laugh was like grinding metal. Bold words. "But we know who you are," Marcus read, the human who lost his entire squad to overconfidence. "Will you repeat that mistake here?" The words hit their mark, and Marcus felt his aim waver. Then Zara's hand touched his shoulder, sending that warm strength flowing through him. "The past does not define you," she said softly. "What you do now does." Renewed determination flooded through him. These hunters thought they could use his guilt against him, but they didn't understand what he was fighting for now. It wasn't about military objectives or following orders. This was about protecting the family he'd found among the stars. The battle intensified as the hunters began their final assault. Energy bolts filled the air like deadly lightning, and Marcus felt the familiar calm of combat settle over him. Beside him, Zara fought with elegant precision, each shot placed with mathematical accuracy. They were outnumbered, but not outmatched. The hunters had expected easy prey, broken human and a refugee engineer. Instead, they found two souls fighting. As one, their bond making them stronger than the sum of their parts. When the last hunter fell, Marcus and Zara stood together in the smoking aftermath, breathing hard but unharmed. Baby Nix's cries echoed from the shelter, and they rushed inside to comfort her. "It's over," Marcus said, gathering both of them into his arms. "No," Zara replied, though she melted into his embrace. "More will come. They will not stop hunting." Marcus looked down at her, this fierce warrior woman who'd become his heart, and made a decision that would change everything. "Then we don't give them the chance to find us again," he said. "We leave, together, all of us." Zara's eyes widened. With hope and something deeper, love that transcended every boundary the universe had tried to place between them. The transport ship Wanderer's Hope hung in space like a silver needle against the starfield, its holds full of refugees from a dozen different worlds. Marcus stood at the observation deck's massive viewport, baby Nick sleeping peacefully in his arms while Zara worked nearby, her fingers dancing over a holographic display as she helped coordinate the refugee convoy's navigation. 6 months had passed since they'd fled the mining station. The hunter attack had been a wake-up call. Staying in one place made them vulnerable, but leaving had also opened possibilities neither of them had imagined. "The new Harmony colony has confirmed they can accommodate our convoy," Zara announced, looking up from her work with a smile that still made Marcus's heart skip. "We'll arrive in 3 days." Marcus shifted Nix to his shoulder, marveling at how much she'd grown. The baby had become the convoy's unofficial mascot, her mixed heritage making her a symbol of hope for humans and aliens learning to coexist. She babbled cheerfully at everyone who approached, her silver eyes bright with curiosity about the universe around her. "Nervous?" Zara asked, moving to stand beside him at the viewport. "About starting over again?" "No," Marcus replied, rapping, his free arm around her waist. "About whether a human, a Kethany, and a baby can make it work on a colony world? Maybe a little." Zara leaned into him, her warmth chasing away any lingering doubts. Over the months together, their bond had only grown stronger. The Kathira connection she'd told him about had become a constant presence, allowing them to share thoughts and emotions with an intimacy that went beyond anything he'd thought possible. "The colonists requested us specifically," she reminded him. "They need engineers who understand both human and Kethany technology. And they need people who've proven that different species can work together." That was true enough. Word had spread through the refugee networks about the human soldier in Kethany. Engineer who'd not only survived together, but built something beautiful from the ashes of their losses. Colonies throughout the frontier were eager to recruit them. "Besides," Zara continued, a teasing note entering her voice, "I believe someone promised to make me an honest woman once we reached safe harbor." Marcus grinned, remembering the proposal he'd made in the cramped confines of their escape ship. It had been spontaneous, born of love and desperation, and the absolute certainty that he wanted to spend his life with this remarkable woman and her daughter. "Just as soon as we find someone qualified to perform an interspecies marriage ceremony," he promised, pressing a kiss to her temple. "About that," Zara said, producing a datapad from her robes. "I may have been researching colonial age law. It seems the new Harmony colony has very progressive policies regarding non-traditional families." Before Marcus could respond, Nix began to fuss, her tiny hands grasping at the air. Zara took her daughter and began the swaying motion that never failed to soothe her. Watching them together, his loves, his family, Marcus felt his chest fill. With an emotion too big for words, the past year had taught him that home wasn't a place, but the people you chose to share your life with. He'd lost one family to war and circumstance, but the universe had given him another chance. Chance to be not just a soldier or a survivor, but a father and husband and partner in building something new. The colony administrators sent their preliminary assignments, Zara continued, shifting Nyx to her hip. Were being offered positions heading the new Integrated Technology Development Program. Joined. Human Kethany research teams working on sustainable colonization methods. And I accepted for both of us, Zara said with mock innocence. I hope you don't mind. Marcus laughed, the sound echoing off the observation deck's curved walls. Mind? I can't think of anything I'd rather do than spend my days working beside. You two build a better future. As if summoned by their conversation, other refugees began gathering at the viewports as the colony ship's destination came into view. New Harmony was a green jewel of a world, its continents wreathed in clouds that sparkled with the light of its twin suns. Cities dotted the surface like clusters of gems, their architecture a blend of human practicality and alien elegance. Luck, luck, Nyx Zara whispered to her daughter, holding her up to see the approaching world. Your new home. The baby's eyes widened with wonder, and she reached toward the viewport as if trying to touch the distant planet. Marcus placed his hand over Zara's on the baby's back, and for a moment the three of them were connected, not just by the physical touch, but by the bonds of love and hope and shared dreams. Around them, the other refugees pressed close to the viewports, their faces reflecting the same mixture of anticipation and trepidation. Humans and Kethany, Zephyrians Hood defected from the hunter fleets. Even a few of the crystalline Vortani who rarely left their homeworlds, all of them seeking the same thing, a chance to build new lives among the stars. As the transport began its final approach, Marcus realized their story was just beginning. The rescue from the crashed ship had been only the first chapter. Everything that followed, the healing, the growing trust, the love that had bloomed between species, the family they'd forged from Las Olivet, was prologue to the real adventure. Ready? Zara asked, as the landing sequence initiated. Marcus looked at the woman who'd become his heart, at the child who'd become his daughter, at the green world that would become their home. With you, I'm ready for anything. The transport touched down with barely a whisper, and through the viewport, Marcus could see colonists gathering to welcome them. Human and alien faces mingled in the crowd, all of them united by the hope of building something better together. As they gathered their belongings and prepared to disembark, Marcus felt a profound sense of completion. He'd spent years running from his past, but Zara and Nyx had taught him something essential sometimes. The best way to heal old wounds was to open your heart to new possibilities, hand in hand. With Nyx cradled between them, they stepped off the transport and into their new life. The alien suns were warm on their faces, and the future stretched ahead of them like an uncharted star map, full of infinite possibilities for love, discovery, and hope.